I work for the Turtle Mountain Community College as a Native American Culture Coordinator. And I've come to share today about Adewigan, the drum and the significance of the drum to our people. A long time ago, there was a lot of war between the Dakota and the Ojibwe people. And that war happened where this woman lost all 4 of her sons. And this was a Dakota woman. She lost all 4 of her sons in that war. And she was hiding out, so she hid in the water because she was very sad and she was crying and she was praying about that war. And while she was in that water, she had a vision, and in that vision, she saw the drum. And she saw that when this drum is played, it's a big drum, when the drum is played, that there would be no war between the Dakota and Ojibwe.
But it wasn't long after they came onto the plains that a new sound erupted and filled the airways. It was the sound of a fiddle.
Yeah, there's so many violin players that have come and gone. There were so many good fiddlers, and there's still some pretty good ones here today, you know. And hopefully we can keep this going with the younger generation. Yeah, you know, in the older days when they had all these bush parties and all that, usually people were invited. And then when you had people that were uninvited, they were called Peters for some reason, you know, and someone would greet them at the door and say, "I'm sorry, no Peters allowed," you know. And those were, for most of those guys, they just try to come into the old-time bush dances and make themselves welcome. And I don't think there was any disrespect there on part of the homeowners, but it was just, I think, letting people know that, you know, you should be invited to some things and don't just go pop in on people like that, you know. But yeah, I always remember that term, chick. I mean, I was a little guy when I heard that term, and you don't hear that anymore though today, you know.
I come from a line of jiggers on the trottier side, or chache as they say it here, and I can probably, they say it's in your genes or your family roots, you know, learning how to jig or knowing how to jig, or it comes natural to you. And I credit my family for passing it on to me.
Okay. But in spite of the fact you knew this stuff, what made you different than other people your age that were into rock and roll and all this stuff and let you continue to carry on your traditional dancing?
I wanted something that my family and I could do together. My wife, my children, and families that we knew who had this similar interest. So we all got together and decided that this is what we wanted to do. We wanted to preserve, promote, and enhance our culture and pass it on to the next generation.
Our foods have a French flavor to them. We cook a meatball called boulette, and that's a hamburger mixed with flour and onions, and it's boiled, and we get a nice broth, or bouillon as we call it, along with the meatball, and it's really a delicious meal. We also have pastries, cakes, and we have this thing we call boudin, which is blood sausage that we learned from the French. So those are some of the foods that we've used in our growing up in our homes.
My name is Vince Grant in Turtle Mountains here, and I'm going to give a short presentation on fur trade error mountain man days. First of all, why was there even a fur trade era? Well, they discovered that they could take beaver pelts and shear them down and make the felt for the hats. And at the time, the big tall top hats were popular at that time. So there became quite a demand for beaver pelts. But they didn't take just beaver, they took whatever. Deer, bear, elk, moose, bison, all the different fur-bearing animals. So they harvested them, took them down to the traders and traded them to the rendezvous and traded them they traded for steel goods, steel axe heads, steel tomahawk heads, knives, needles, beads, mirrors, cast iron skillets and cookware. You'd say that in order to buy a rifle, the rifle being one of the most expensive things they had, they said they'd take this rifle and set it flat on the ground. Then you start stacking beaver pelts here. You stack beaver pelts up until it got to the front sight. When it got that high up, you traded for this rifle.
The people of the Turtle Mountains, we've been through and know parts of 5 languages. The Ojibwe Chippewa language, which is Father Belcourt calls Soto. The French language, which my dad loves. When my dad was working in a store downtown Belcourt, he would, while he was working, his grandpa came in and would talk to him in French. And in fact chewed him out for not knowing French well enough. So since that time in the 30s, after getting chewed out by his grandpa, Alexander Brien, or Brion, Dad said, hey, I need to know French. And so he always has taken a liking to French, our whole life, my whole life, and he's 85 years old right now, and he's constantly asking us to learn and know French, because by learning and knowing French, you can know the heart and the mind of the Turtle Mountain people.
There's no other language in the world that is the Michif language, because it's a mixture of Cree, French, and a little bit of Chippewa.
And what makes Michif language so unique is that it has distinguishable parts of speech. The nouns are all French, or mostly French. The verbs and adjectives and adverbs are all Indian. So for example, I might say, Nuit Tustan dans la ville, means la ville is town, and Nuit Tustan, that means I'm going to town. So that's how that kind of blends in. And the rules pretty much hold throughout the whole of the Michif language.
Now, if you did teach Michif at the college, how would you get across to your students it was important for them to learn it?
Well, first of all, the kids that comes to the class is going to have to want to learn it. If they want to learn it, it's no problem to teach the kids.
The way I look at it is we all are unique people, and we're to follow our hearts. And I was raised as a Catholic person, but I had a grandpa who had a pipe, and as a little girl he taught me, different things about his pipe and stories about his grandma who was a pipe carrier, and he was gifted. He was able to doctor people who come to him sick, and So when I started growing up a little bit and understanding, then I realized that there was another part of our faith and our way of life that, to me, it was like I had something pulling me into that way. And by the time I got to be 20 years old and I had my children, I was more open to asking my mom about it, and she started teaching me and telling me the things that my grandpa could do, and I started going to ceremonies at that time because I was sick. And so I would go to the doctor and I would go to ceremonies, and with the ceremonies, anytime you go for healing, it brings you into that type of prayer. And so I was a little bit worried about what Mom and Dad would think about me going to sun dances, where sun dances asks you to go and pray for life, to extend your life, or to heal the people. And I found I was comfortable with that. But at the same time, I still had that, I never did pull away from my Catholic faith, because that was something that was instilled in me from my parents and from my grandparents. So with all respect, I wanted that part too.
The impact of the Catholic Indian missionary on the culture of the Turtle Mountain people has been very significant over time. It started with Father Belcourt from 1830 to 1850, 1855. Father Belcourt went on to buffalo hunts with our people. In fact, Father Belcourt started the first school in North Dakota, and the school was in 3 languages: English, French, and Chippewa. Father Belcourt was even thrown in jail for the Turtle Mountain people. In St. Boniface, Winnipeg, what is today St. Boniface, Winnipeg, Manitoba, Father Belcourt wrote a letter to the Queen of England complaining to the Queen about how the Northwest, or the Hudson Bay, was treating the Métis and Native people, and word got back to the Hudson Bay folks, and so they retaliated against him, threw him in jail.
Francis, I think you have a unique perspective about you in that you're a deacon in the Catholic Church,
Mm-hmm.
yet you attend sun dances,
Mm-hmm.
and you probably go to sweats.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you see those two blending together? Because there's controversy around here about you got to be one or the other. How do you see those two meshing together and your ability to go from one to the other?
Well, I think if you really think about it, they complement each other. For example, I always tell people the most intensive prayers that I ever prayed was in the traditional ceremonies, like in a sweat lodge. The prayers are very intense in the sweat lodge. When you go on they call it a Humletia vision quest. When you pray on the hill, you're there for however long you choose. And if you're there for 3 days, 4 days, your whole focus is on prayers, very intense. Then of course they have the sun dance, which is probably 4 days. So you dance for 4 days. And the dance is really actually you're praying for 4 days. So you fast in those 4 days, and so it's very intense because you don't have water, you don't have food. They give you what they call medicine. They call it they'll give you, but it's a liquid, And then at nights when you're done dancing, you go into a sweat, and then they'll give you water to drink. But that's it. That's all you get. The population here, the high population, are probably Roman Catholic in our community. But then when the numbers start to break down when you look at practicing Catholics, then the number will change again. And there's always this population that just choose to do to practice the traditional ways. It's just a matter of choice. And I always think spirituality is very personal in our lives. Our belief system is very, very personal in our lives. You think about your belief system and how important that is to us as an individual.
My culture and my tradition is not a religion. It's a way of life. It's a way of life. We should respect one another, you know, in our religions, in our belief systems. We should always respect what the other person believes.
Dan, you're a pioneer in this community. You're one of the first educated people. You're a state senator. You were a school administrator, one of the first on our reservation. Why do you think you had success going and finishing college when so many people your age never even finished high school?
You know, I think the experience of being in the service, first of all, you learn with other people who you feel you have to compete with, and I just looked at all the other people that were, and they were not Native Americans necessarily. They were all non-Indian people, and I competed very well with them. So I thought, well, there's no question that I should be able to and get a college degree. So that's why I went immediately into school right after I got out of the service.
I have seen the changes take place in that more people are aware of the opportunities they have to get an education. When I was growing up, of course, my parents believed in it, and my mom, you know, would have her hand in front of me, you're going to college, you're going to have a career. And in my day, we didn't have a whole lot of choices, but I think I was born to be a teacher. I know I was born to be a teacher because I've been in it since I was 21 and I'm now 83.
When I went to the university, there were 3 of us at the University of North Dakota at Grand Forks. And yes, I was a real rare commodity. There wasn't any question about that.
Our students were really happy to have us because I believe that we gave them a little different look at education and let them see that, you know, if I could do it, they certainly could do it. And I hope it has, you know, worked that way.
I went to Haskell first. Of course, that gave me a good background on different things. And I've been away. In other words, that's what I'm trying to say, is that going to that particular boarding school was really good for me, I thought. Plus the service.
Do you think your experiences have helped other young people from this reservation want to continue their education?
I'm not positively sure, but I hope I hope it did. So I know, and I can see people saying, if Dan Jerome could do it, anybody could do it. So
I think we're making an impact in the elementary schools as far as our graduates from the college being teachers now of those students, because the graduates from this school here at the college here actually do 3 things that mainstream institutions don't do, and that's the language and the culture, and also understanding the socioeconomic background of our students. You know, a lot of our students come from different socioeconomic backgrounds, from the lower socioeconomic status and also the higher, you know, socioeconomic status. So I believe our students who graduate from here are very astute and knowledgeable about what it takes to be a good teacher here in our school systems, K through 12.